T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Midheaven Shitcast. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining us. This is my co-host, the Peace Stealer. I was like waiting for you to pull out your Batman costume.
Yes.
Just kidding. This is the Midheaven podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it very much. We are really stoked to be here and keep doing what we're doing and putting in the good work when it comes to drinking on the internet and talking to you guys about what's going on in the cosmos.
And thank you for joining us. May I let you know, after this Venus retrograde transit finishes and Mars and Venus enter Aquarius, Candice and I are going to be famous.
Where were you coming up with that? Why do you say that? Because of the North Node?
Well, because I realized, you know what? All of this has been working on our Saturn, and Saturn brings delays and rules success. So, I mean, there's so many people who have spoken on both of us not having as much viewership or attention as we could, even though we're being shadow banned. But I just realized that, you know, it's not what we were waiting for, but this is going to be the launching point to push both of our careers forward. It's almost as if we completed so much collective karma, because, you know, Saturn Capricorn's got to do all the work.
It's going to go over your moon and over your Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's going to stop short of my natal placements, but Saturn's going to hit my North Node. It's already done that for you. Even though I'm older than you, Saturn's going to hit my North Node in the new year.
That's
so
true.
it's interesting the way that it's
backwards.
playing out, right? Because it's in your 8th house, it's in my 4th, so it's very
And just to give you
private.
context, when Saturn went over my North Node the first time, I created an LLC, opened a psychic hotline, and I have readers. And so it just kind of set the frame. It's a consultant line. It's not a psychic hotline, but I have psychics on it. So I'll like Clearsight Consulting, shameless plug.net. But yes, I'm just letting y'all know, like, Jupiter's out of Aquarius by this. Like, if I or Candace act brand new, it's because we famous now. I'm just saying.
I mean, the North Node's in my 5th. So it's kind of interesting because Jupiter's been there all year and Saturn's getting ready to conjunct it. And Saturn's definitely the ruler of my 4th. So I feel like it's going to play out in a couple different ways. And I'm one of those sweet spots because I have 21 degrees. So the North Node's going to hit, Saturn's going to hit my North Node a couple times in preparation for going into then 2023 when Uranus opposes my sun. So I do think that it's about a whole identity change. There is some truth to that, but it's interesting. It's really weird.
If anyone blows up big first, I think it would be Candace.
I don't know how though, because I'm not really.
I got the 10th house, so I could, but
I'm not really fixated on like the idea of like.
She's not gonna want to be famous.
No, I don't want to be.
She's gonna be famous.
I mean,
and there's nothing she can do about it. It is what it is.
It is what it is. I'm actually really stoked. I've had a lot of really positive feedback just coming back to YouTube and doing this, and like you've been a big part of that, so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're much needed.
Being on the internet in 2013, 14, 15, working for Lotta, that's how we became friends.
Shout out to Asha Lotta.
Yeah, shout out to her. We did a lot of videos separately and then together, and then we always kind of talked about we need to do more, and then it finally happened. But I think that for me, maybe it's because I have so many natal placements in Capricorn. You know, my Venus is in Capricorn. There's a lot going on. And you certainly, it's important for you because your moon is there. So,
and the moon is the mother. And during that period, I should be back in El Paso having my yearly Christmas, New Year's visit with my mother, at my mother's house with my sisters and my cousin who we brought to Nigeria to live with us after his mother passed, my aunt.
How ironic that Venus will go retrograde over your moon Saturn with Pluto, and it's the ruler of your 3rd. And it's about dealing literally with a woman coming to stay with you and your family, having moved.
Oh, and it's actually a Libra sun. He's a male. He's a Libra sun, Gemini moon, Cancer rising. But
yeah, and maybe that's like about like kind of bringing them into the family and adopting new. You know, Venus can be like social, like rituals or family rituals.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely going to be different because I'll also be the only one who's not. It's going to be interesting. So, yeah, I don't think there'll be any friction, but I'm just kind of hesitant.
It's in the 8th house, so it's private, right? Like for me, it's like I don't know. I don't put my chart out there a lot, but most all of my planets are in the bottom part of my chart. I got 4 planets in the second house, 4 planets in the fourth. I'm a very private person, so I'm like really weird about what people know about my personal life, my private life. But for me, I think Venus going retrograde in the fourth house is going to be being a Venus ruled chart. You're a Venus ruled chart too. You're Taurus rising.
Yeah, we're both Venus ruled. That's why we're beautiful. And you're having a Venus return. So how do you feel about that?
I'm getting married on my Venus return. I'm very excited about that. Literally, it's on my Venus return.
And I hate romance. But this just brings a tear to my eye. Like, yes.
It was purely coincidence, too, because it wasn't anything that I planned. It's really weird that, like, that's what I love about astrology.
So you didn't look at it and you weren't like, that's why.
No, it was like the one thing that I was like, I am not going to psychoanalyze this. I'm going to have a human experience.
That's how it should be.
When my fiance was like, let's get married, like, in the Virgin Islands for your birthday, I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. And it was like a matter of just which days were available. So it just so happened that 6 months later, coming into the Sun-Uranus opposition, Venus moves into Capricorn, literally the day of my Venus return, which happens to also be the day before my birthday. So it's like I have a Venus, Mars, and solar return all within 48 hours. And I'm in a 9th house year. So I'm literally going away, traveling to go and get married. It's like, it's literally, and it's in between eclipses. So it makes me kind of feel like, oh, okay, this is kind of like destined. I'm stoked. I'm stoked to have a Venus return. So I'm stoked to have Juno on my Venus. I'm really excited to have Venus in my 4th house and have an extended Venus return for the better part of 4 months. And I think it's really good because it's going to give me the opportunity to really focus on my domestic stuff and my home and my family, and thinking a lot about what I want in this next year and how I want to feel emotionally. Like, I'm so prepared for it. I took a couple weeks off in December going into January to just have time to be like, if I want to reorganize my closet, I can. If I want to focus on writing a course, I can. If I want to think about home stuff and, you know, how I want to live, where I want to live, looking hopefully into like new property stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
And like, once again, I just want to speak about that because I actually thought, I don't know why I thought you kind of like planned the dates based on.
You would think I would.
Right, I assumed it.
You would think I would.
And there's a lot of people who are very obsessed with that, like finding the right date to plan stuff and stuff like that. And as a Taurus rising, I believe solely in naturalness, like just being natural. I like to look at the date after I did something naturally and see it. And so knowing that that's happening, exact Venus like conjunct.
It's exact on my Venus return. It's the day that Mercury opposes Uranus.
Right.
It's the day that Sun squares Jupiter.
So for those of you who like to plan events, there's nothing wrong with planning events based on astrology, but this reason alone is why I always push, choose the right date, but do things naturally. You know what I mean?
I was picky with the time because once the date was picked, I was very picky with the time. And it's a weird thing because it's right when Venus is getting ready to start its shadow, like days later. So I was like, okay, if it's going to be in November, it has to literally be between the 11th and the 13th. Otherwise, I was like, nah, it's not happening until March.
Plus, I also feel like as a Taurus rising, I favor more naturalness. But if you're a cardinal rising, I think like a Capricorn rising or Libra rising, that gives you more onus to like control and pick dates and times. You'll probably be better at it because you're cardinal.
And I do a lot of that. I don't know if you do like election astrology. But
I'm too lazy to.
I mean, I will, and people don't realize how much work that is because when somebody says, tell me what day to get married, I'm not going to be some half-ass astrologer that's going to be like, oh, this day looks good. I'm going to be like, give me your chart.
Right.
Give me your partner's chart. I'm going to run the composite chart and we need to look for reoccurring days that are perfect for all 3 charts, and then I'm going to tell you what time, and oh, by the way, I'll give you locations.
I can do it for other people, but for myself, I'm too lazy. But that's why Candace is legit, y'all, because I saw last time I was here, she pulled some of that election stuff, and I've been a little bit skeptical about election stuff to the matter of minutes, but I've seen this woman to the minute get some shit right about when the internet would come back on, and I couldn't even be surprised. I was just like, of course, this is the Pluto goddess here, but like still.
I will say though, it's restored my faith in astrology the few times, and it's so weird because I just spoke to my astrologer. Shout out to Michael Lennox. He's one of my homeboys. But it's funny because I was talking to him and he was like, yeah, like Saturn's going to hit your North Node in Aquarius in the 5th. And he goes, it sounds to me like you're going to stop trying to focus on when things are going to happen for yourself. And I was like, that is my New Year's resolution. I'm like, I'm so freaked out with Saturn on my North Node and Uranus opposed to my Sun. And I know textbook what's going to happen. And like, fuck, I'm just like, I'm not ready for that stuff. And he's like, well, just don't worry about it. So the more that I've looked at some of the decisions that I've made leading into the end of this year, I've realized like, even when I go back and like the venue's paid for, the wedding is paid for, everything is done. I look at the chart, I look at my chart, I look at his chart, I look at our chart, and I'm like, it was literally to the day, even to the hour. So I'm like, fuck it, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
That's profound. Like that's
astrology
crazy.
is real. Like it's
like,
just
it's
sometimes
wild.
it's confirmation.
It's really
right?
confirmation,
Yeah.
and it's just like because there's the interpretive aspect of astrology, which is an art form that's subjective, and then you have the objective astrology, which isn't what we think it means, but you know, at this time, this transit happened. Regardless of your beliefs, that's science. Like that's what happened.
Yeah.
But once again, like the reason why I appreciate Scorpio and Virgo is I don't have any of those energies. Like I just have Gemini, Taurus, and I have Cap. So like the first 4 zodiac signs are what it is. But when it comes to like specificity, when it comes to like pinpointing accurately, I notice Scorpio and Virgo are the pros at that because it like takes the basis. Like I can tell you, oh, this is gonna happen on this day, but Candace can tell you this is how it's gonna happen at this second and minute, and it's just like
which
holy
makes me
shit.
psycho. Imagine my life like scheduling doctor's appointments or like when I'm gonna get my car worked on or anything, like when I'm gonna launch something, like. I'll
The
look
difference
at things
between
with
a good
people-
appointment or a car accident.
Yeah, like literally, there are days that I'm like, oh, I'm not leaving the house today. It's just, oh my God.
So when you think like that, which it's not like you're overly paranoid, there's credits to it, then the way I act, Mars and Aries, is like every day is a lottery for me because I just wing shit and I don't really care. It's like today I could be like that.
Which
That's how I
is
lose
great.
my iPhone.
I genuinely wish I could be like that. And that's what I'm working on is like leaving more room up for, you know, the universe to kind of get involved and like kind of like realize that like life is what happens when you're busy making
Mars
other
in Libra or
plans.
Scorpio?
I have Mars in Scorpio in the 2nd, conjunct Pluto, Sun, Mercury. So I'm very focused, kind of like, okay,
Conjunct
strategic,
Pluto, damn.
you know?
And I want to honor that because you said you wish you could be more like that, but I think you really need to embrace more of what you got because like
You want me to be more of a psycho than I already am?
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like you just change it a little bit, and I feel what you mean, right? But like I just didn't want to discount, you know, what you got too, because I can gain so much from being more strategic and planning stuff out. And with Mars and Aries, like before I can with my Cap Moon be like, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't be as retarded like this. I already did it. I can't undo it. So it's like, shit. And then
My moon's in Aries though, so thank God
Right,
for
so
my
you do
interaction with
understand
other people who are just reckless and they're kind of wild. And I'm like, how does that work? It's good. It's good.
you can understand it.
I can appreciate
And
it.
appreciate
I can
it,
see
right.
the chaotic reflection of myself and other people of what I want to do.
Candace, I will get high off marijuana and I'll reflect on the shit I did sober. And it's like, why did I think that was a good... And it terrifies me. At least if it was the other way around, I could be like, okay, I just need to stop doing drugs. But like, these are sober decisions. It's like, I have to... I hate it. But I love it. It is what it is. I hope I learned from it. But it just really made me
I
think.
just fucking love Gemini. I love Gemini so much. I really do. I have come to realize that it's just
God.
like I have to understand that I have to have appreciation for mutable signs, for air signs. I lack air in my chart. I'm a Libra
Right.
rising, but it's 0 degrees. So for me, it's like dealing with the element of air and just being very kind of like abstract and like not always reliable.
Yeah. No, well, specifically for Gemini. Yeah.
For me, it's like, oh, it must be nice to just fucking live on a unicorn and not abide by schedules or times or expectations or changing up the narrative.
wing.
Like, I would love to do that for like a week.
I realized for my career too, I've winged everything.
It's great. I'm really
I don't even plan. I
impressed.
just like, you know what, fuck it, we're doing this. And I want to really start, it's like my final form is preparation, but like I haven't even flirted with that, I'm just winging everything.
I had 2 years of my
This is
progressed moon
crazy.
in Gemini. So I feel like I've learned. It's
Yeah,
been in the 8th
yeah.
house, so it's been interesting. But now
Now
that
it's in Cancer?
now it's in Cancer. And I'm like, I'm like crying all the time. I'm like fucking over it.
Oh
and I have
God.
natal planets in Cancer, and I'm a 4th house stellium, but it's really weird because now I'm like, okay, I dealt with the crazy phase. Now I'm like more focused on security. I
What
don't know,
degree
it's-
is your partner's Cancer?
Cancer?
Yeah.
Moon?
Moon.
8.
So it's gonna be.
I know what you're gonna say. Just, I'm gonna shut that down real quick. Ah! No!
No comment.
It's in the 8th house.
That's beautiful.
I know. Ah!
Soul union right there.
Please don't.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, whatever.
It's a good
It is
thing.
what it is. There's a
Oh,
bunch
that
of squares
makes it-
coming, but I will say, I think it's interesting, and this is great for us to have this conversation like prior to going into this, because
Right.
there's a lot of like don't do's during a Venus retrograde, right? Like there's a lot of don't do's, like don't get married, don't take your ex back, don't get engaged, don't get cosmetic surgery, don't make any huge changes to your wardrobe, don't get bangs. Am I missing anything?
A whole lot of stuff. And I noticed that retrogrades are when soulmates come in or like deeper connections come in.
110%.
Yes. So it's like you want to wait until it goes direct and move direct. But as someone like me who just flies by the seat of his pants, I've signed contracts and moved during Mercury retrogrades. And I've experienced both. I've signed a phone contract with 2 people who I barely just met during a Mercury retrograde. And the Mercury retrograde ended with me having to end the phone contract because these 2 motherfuckers didn't want to pay the bill and use me to basically pay their way. Fucking scumbags. Because they knew what they were doing. And I was
It's
like,
so
oh,
Mercury,
it's Mercury
though.
retrograde. But then I've also moved during a Mercury retrograde and it helped me move so much quicker. So it's really just about reading the contracts. The retrograde is really just about like making sure you read the fine print. That's probably more for Mercury, but for Venus, it's probably going to be more making sure you know who you're dealing with, relating with. So it's instead of saying don't enter a relationship in a Venus retrograde, it'd be wiser to say don't jump into a relationship. You can enter it, but just be a lot more sure about what you're doing.
So this is an interesting topic because I got to be honest with you. This Venus retrograde, just preface, very similar to what happened, I believe, in the end of 2013. So you want to think the holidays in 2013 going into 2014. I'm just going to double check that.
2014.
But
was
I
the
believe
year
that was
when-
the last time that we had this.
That was around the time I got kicked out my mom's house for smoking weed, and she sent me to my uncle's crib. In
I bet
Kansas.
that was it then, because it was when it went over your moon. So I
my
think the
God.
last time we had it, yes, was the end of 2013 going into the beginning of 2014.
Yep, Saturn was in Scorpio, was over my
Yes.
Pluto.
So I want just heads up for you guys, just so you're aware. You
And
want to
that led
think
into me
back to
creating
those
the Peace Dealer
placements.
YouTube channel. So that was the last time Venus
So
went
something
retrograde.
came
Holy
of it?
shit. Oh yeah, it's the greatest thing.
But this Venus retrograde, I gotta tell you, holy fucking balls,
Wait, I'm
dude.
so sorry. So the last time Venus was retrograde,
In Capricorn.
7 years ago?
It was in 2013 going
No,
into
it went
2014.
retrograde before that.
No, in
didn't-
Capricorn.
Oh, in Capricorn.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
last
The
one in
last
Capricorn.
time was in
Yeah.
Capricorn. That's
Yeah.
wild. Okay.
So there can be reoccurring patterns. We're going to give you guys the breakdown, but like
That's
this
deep.
is something that seems pretty prominent. When I look at this Venus retrograde, it's like my eyes bug the fuck out, okay? So when the retrograde starts, let me go back in time.
Skirt. And I mean, the Mercury retrograde was brutal just because it squared Pluto. So, I mean, what is this Venus finna be? Like, oh my
There will be a time in early 2022. I've had way too many drinks. I'm like so into this. There will be a time at early 2022 where both Venus and Mercury fucking go retrograde in Capricorn. Okay? Okay, are you ready for this?
It comes out of Aquarius and goes into
Bingo.
Cap. Oh my
Okay,
God.
so there's something setting up here. So let's just start at the beginning. Hi, welcome. We're at November 17th, 18th. Venus enters shadow. So what does this
Trine
mean?
Uranus? Oh my God.
Yeah. So when you have a shadow period, similar to any other retrograde, sometimes the static can start prior to the retrograde itself. So it's like, we think of the Mercury retrograde, sometimes things are wild, they're like buck wild a week or two before the retrograde starts. Venus retrograde shadow starts on 17th, 18th of November, 2021. Probably by the time this is coming out, you guys are already seeing this, so just be mindful, we're already in the shadow. 2, it will retrograde from about 26 degrees of Capricorn to 11 degrees of Capricorn. If you have anything between 26 and 11, or maybe even a degree on each side, it's going to get affected. You're going to feel that. Same thing for all the earth signs. Same thing for all the cardinal signs. You're going to experience the squares. Okay, so really the retrograde shadow is going to start right around the 18th. So you may start feeling the effects of that, right? It's safe to say.
Yeah.
Venus is going to be in Capricorn, the sign about responsibility, commitment, long-term plans.
Quick question. What do you feel trine Uranus that's going to do?
Yeah, and the trine to Uranus, that's really what I was getting at, was that I'm a huge fan of Uranus trine Venus.
I love it. I have it natally.
Huge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so things
And
turn on a
Neptune, too.
dime. Especially for you. You change, you transform. See, I've been experiencing Uranus trine my natal Venus the last 2 years. And it's been... The beginning trines were difficult because there was lots of changes in my preferences, my resources,
Do you
my
think
money.
Earth stabilizes it a bit?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So it's...
But the tail end, like the final trine was like, boom, all your dreams come true. Like when it comes to like
Yes,
money
that's why I
and
love
love
it.
and
It's so good.
relationships.
It's like automates income too.
Yeah, the final
Which is weird.
trine was really great because it kind of set me up in a way where I was like, wow, my investments are paying off. I met like the love of my life. Like everything all came together. So
That's beautiful.
in that sense, it's good. So you want to pay attention to what's going on the 18th to the 19th because it'll retrograde back to this point.
Right. 12, 11, or 10?
It'll be 11.
11. Deep. Okay.
But it'll be the 18th or the 19th.
And Uranus will still be retrograde by then too.
Yes,
Okay.
and keep in mind that on the 19th, we have the eclipse in Taurus. So we already did a video on that. You watched it, whatever.
Right.
But the eclipse in Taurus with Venus trine Uranus is basically saying, hey, listen, guys, here's the deal. Resources, money, values, relationships, they're all changing. Here's how we get with the change. So the eclipse actually ushers that in Scorpio season.
So let's both of us share what we think the most important part of Venus retrograde is, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So I think the most important part about Venus retrograde is that it's going to reach Pluto, die, transform, resurrect, awaken, and then but the most important part of Venus retrograde is that it's going to retrograde back, and when it goes direct, it's going to catch up with Mars, and it's going to travel with its
I love that
lover.
you're saying all this. Go ahead.
Right? And then the Mars direct and Venus direct will eventually conjunct Pluto. So I think the most important thing about Venus retrograde is that it's going to allow Mars to catch up with it, and they're going to travel together. And they'll both be conjunct with Aquarius. So what do you feel about the most?
Well, let's talk about Venus retrograde in general. Aside from it being in Capricorn, aside from it being conjunct Pluto, Venus retrograde is like that 40-day period of what would be Venus's descent into the underworld, right? Because she will eventually rise as the morning star.
Do you also feel it correlates to Jesus fasting for 40 days and 40 nights? Or
Yes
Elijah?
and yes and no.
Okay.
I feel like yes, sure, of course, yeah, 4 days and 40 nights, sure. But I feel like Venus in a Saturn-ruled sign, we have to
Right.
look at what's going on with Saturn.
Yep.
And Saturn's in a square very tightly around the end of December and the holidays where the final Saturn square Uranus happens. Where this is the fireworks, this is the final innovation, the changing, the push and the pull that's been happening all year between what is expected and what's tradition versus what is new. So whatever Uranus is in your chart, it's new, it's innovative, it's groundbreaking, it's more stable, it wants to bring you more. So something about what's going on, just being that Saturn's in that square, puts a real emphasis on the end of December and where we're innovating and we're adapting and we're bringing in new traditions, new kind of breaking out of social limitations. And when Uranus and Saturn are in a square, Uranus always wins because it's like the punk that's going to throw like a bomb into the situation. So
Yeah.
You want to think back on what happened in February of 2021, what happened in May of 2021 when we had these squares. It was May, right? Or was it June? It was May or June. We had those Saturn-Uranus squares. I've seen in clients' charts that the third square is like the finale. So if you are a Taurus who
so there's not going to be a square after this? Is that what you're saying?
There's still going to be squares next year, but this is the third square this year. Exact.
And the third is the finale?
The finale. I've seen that, you know, it's like when planets go back and forth over in the square, when the square finally perfects the third time, it's like you see what the break off was. Especially
like
because Saturn square Uranus is like
Pluto,
breaking bones, breaking connections, breaking limitations, breaking
bones.
Right? Literally, Saturn square Uranus.
Unexpectedly.
So that in itself is important, but I think that when we look at the story of Venus retrograde and how Venus is actually taken by Hades into the underworld, she's forced to stay there for a period of time.
So are you linking Venus to Persephone?
Yes.
Oh, that's so deep.
That's what the Venus retrograde is connected to, and how Ceres is desperate looking for her, goes into depression, can't find her, everything dies as a result of Venus being brought into the underworld. So on one hand, I look at this and go, wow, December, January, February, things that are hidden beneath the surface, things about abduction, rape, sexually being trafficked, being hidden, things that the government is trying to cover up regarding how they're spending money, their finances, pedophilia rings, all kinds of things that people have said are happening, but nobody has any proof. That in itself, just with the Venus retrograde, is more common, but under the guise of Capricorn, elderly people dying, certain corporate companies going under, things being reevaluated financially in terms of big institutions, big companies issuing layoffs, and then the conjunction to Pluto, which is literally Pluto-Venus, obsessive love, rebirth,
that's what I was going to say or ask you, because everything you said was just Venus retrograde in general. And you're talking about Hades, and now this actually
Venus retrograde is fucking insane. I remember looking at it last year being like, what's going to happen? Especially when you look at the astrology from December to March, when we begin to then see Mars moves into Capricorn, Mars and Venus come into Capricorn, they conjunct, they follow each other very closely in the new year.
This is a transformation of the system. And it's like we're entering a whole new metaverse. So with Jupiter going...
Oh my God, did you just say that?
Yeah. With Jupiter going into Pisces, like there's going to be uncharted territory. We're going to be introduced to concepts we've never heard of before.
But also, Capricorn is those who are in uniform. Capricorn is the government. Capricorn is cops, firefighters, people who are there to serve and they stand in public position. You can't look at this and also look at what's going on in the news right now, where so many police officers, firefighters, nurses, people who wear uniforms, even people in the military are going, fuck this, fuck the mandates, I'm not doing this, and they've pushed back. Now what's happened? Ironically, especially I think it's in New York, they said that it has to go through some kind of like, there needs to be meetings and conversations that they have because they are unions with what's going on with the state. And it's all been pushed to December 31st, 2021. So in the midst of the Venus retrograde, we have all of these unions meeting about the mandates and whether or not they need to follow through with the mandates.
It's like a final decision that's going to be made during this period. And
yes.
You mentioned uniforms. Venus is fashion. Do you feel like we might see like a change to flags, brands, logos, uniforms being worn? I don't even care about
Venus
that. Venus
in Capricorn. First of all, Venus in Capricorn is not the sexiest sign. It's just not. I have that. I
really?
Can say that. No, it's not. Venus in Capricorn is more.
I'm biased because I think Capricorn is sexy. So like I think the professional clothing is sexy.
Okay. Well, you have a Cap Moon. So
I'm biased though. I'm biased.
But Venus in Capricorn is more leather pumps, you know, pencil skirt, jacket. It's more traditional or old-fashioned. Like for me, I have Venus in Capricorn. For a long period of time, I love to put my hair in like victory rolls, and I love red lipstick, and I love fitted skirts, and I like things that are more vintage. I like things that have like a little bit of like an older flair.
Right.
But when Venus goes into Capricorn conjunct Pluto, there's going to be huge changes regarding, on one hand, our federal budget, federal spending, our debt you know,
Oh yeah,
ceiling.
and aren't we like $30 trillion in debt right now? Rand Paul wore that as a Halloween costume because
Yeah.
before he wore 10 million trillion because 10 trillion because it was scary, and now we're 30 million.
Shameless plug, go and watch my Pluto return video that I have on the Beyond the Veil channel. It talks all about some of these aspects. I'm going to do another follow-up.
The America Pluto return?
Yeah, but I talk about the Venus retrograde and what's going to happen. But essentially, I look at this and go, from one hand, yeah, fashion's going to change. We might see like an expansion in vintage wear or what's old or what's attractive. We might see more kind of like old-fashioned 40s, 50s, 60s type aspects.
Damn.
But on the other hand, we may also see that
scary.
when it comes to government, especially the late degrees of Capricorn, there might be more shutdowns. There might be more limitations. We're going to have a crisis about the debt. The debt ceiling. We're going to have a crisis about spending.
I just downloaded something from you, and tell me what you think about it. I feel like Pluto returning, because I also read recently that like it took 2 Pluto cycles for Rome to fall, but the first Pluto cycle came in Rome with the assassination of a lot of leaders. So I'm thinking not related to Rome. When America's Pluto returns, we might see the rise of a new supernation. I don't know if it's going to be China or India, but we might see the rise of another nation who's like the new America and takes over America economically and productively. And what do you think about that? That's just a theory.
It's possible, but I feel like more of the revolution that's going to come is going to come from people who are in uniform. And I also feel like the Venus conjunct Pluto
like
is
military coups and people who like, oh, that'll be cool.
But it's about
That'll
women
change everything.
who are in office.
That's so true too.
Women in office, Venus, Pluto.
Is Kamala going to be president?
You got to look at what's going on with
crazy.
Mars, and Mars is conjunct Sag, which means is there... and I've heard stuff about this. Fact check this, please do. I've heard stuff about whether or not women are going to be put in a position of actually having to be signing up for...
The army?
Not the army, but for, what is it? For...
What about they're already in the army?
No, but like women who have to sign up to be a part of that. What's like not reserves, what's the word that I'm looking
Draft?
for the draft, yeah, whether or not women would have to be drafted. So I think we're going to hear about this. I think more is going to come out about this. I think we're also going to see that there's the possibility, especially because Venus deals with health, wellness, right? Reproductive rights. Look what's going on in the Supreme Court right now regarding all of these issues revolving around abortion.
In Texas or just
Everywhere.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
Right.
You know, that, and it's just a million different things. I see it so many different ways. So I would just say that this Venus retrograde in particular, with the conjunction with Pluto, themes revolving around famous women dying, our debt, how we're spending, how the government is spending our money.
It's going to be
the
a Christmas
truth coming out about how we're spending our money, where our taxes are going. Pluto is taxes.
Yeah.
Oil, things that deal with oil.
Maybe even changes in taxes and tax codes. That'd be cool. Because they're talking about
it's all going to trine the eclipse point at 26
do you
degrees
think they'll
of
enforce
Taurus.
that $600 bank thing?
100%.
Oh, God.
100%.
Well, you're going to have
Which
the
is
government looking at your bank account.
Ironic considering the fact that you've got a bunch of people who are basically being lobbied and making a fuckload of money off of pharmaceutical companies.
Big pharma.
But you want to dig into our stuff. I'll save you. I'll spare you. The point is that this Venus retrograde...
Shout out to all of you pharmacists that are making millions and billions of dollars from what's, being pushed. And I don't even say, as a Capricorn, I see you. Like, I'm trying to get on your level, but it is what it is. Yeah.
So Venus goes retrograde around the 18th, 19th. It's going to sit for a number of days until it retrogrades past the Pluto point. Ironically, it's going to also conjunct Jupiter. So about the 18th, really clear until the new year, you see that this is conjunct. Mercury passes the Pluto point.
Then it goes retrograde.
Then it's going to get ready to go retrograde after it's gotten very close to Saturn. And so here's where things get interesting. In mid-January...
And last year, Mercury was retrograde in Aquarius too.
Yes.
That's deep.
In mid-January, the Sun conjuncts Pluto. Definitely a day to watch for powerful power struggles.
And before you go further, this is going to be an iconic period of time because we will finally...
This is the beginning of the end.
This
is the beginning of the end.
Personally, I think it's 2023 but it's really 2022.
Yeah.
She's right. It's really 2022. That's when it changes to lead there.
Well, there's going to be a retrograde at the end of the year in Capricorn.
In 2022? Oh, Jesus Christ. So I thought it was 2023, but it's really 2022, the beginning of that. And
It's the setup.
It's the setup. And personally, you know, we will have had a full year to examine statistically and knowledgeably. Because if you think about everything that's been said about the pandemic, the election, everything that's happened in 2020, it's been postulates, it's been opinions. But 2022 January will be a full year where we have actual data and resources, and a lot of the truth is going to come out with that retrograde coming into Gemini season in Virgo. So
I'm hoping.
It's going to be
I'm
huge.
hoping. You have to understand all these planets in Capricorn are still in a sextile to Neptune.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And they're in a trine to what will be the North Node
Reinforcing
in
the
Taurus.
collective
It is in a
illusion.
trine to Ceres, which deals with loss, separation, depression.
But you said something that was very key, which I think will be a huge game changer and has precedent in actual news stories happening, which is military and pilots rebelling. Like,
I feel like people who are in the service, I feel like people who are cops, nurses, paramedics,
nurses too.
wholeheartedly, these are going to be the people who are going to lead the resistance.
And the coolest thing is it's not really all what's that word when everyone votes on something? It's not all. There's still kind of like a mini division, but I think there's a silent majority that's not being advertised or pushed. And y'all are going to make the hugest difference. I don't want to necessarily present this as a side versus a side. I think at this collective level, people who are on opposing sides may actually see how both of them have been played. And this might
100%.
right, like
today, as we film this, today is November 3rd.
Right.
It happens to be the day of the worldwide walkout.
and I think they're still going to disagree with each other, but they'll agree to disagree.
It's learning to agree to disagree and finding
see
a
that
common
there's certain
ground.
things that
Yeah.
exactly a common
Yeah.
ground, and I think that's going to be very interesting.
So the retrograde's going to go all the way until Venus conjuncts 11 degrees. So it's going to start slowing down around the 23rd. And it's going to be an interesting time because we've got, once again, a Mercury Sun Cazimi at the end of January, right here on the 22nd. And then Venus is slowing down because it has hit 12 degrees. So in the days ahead, Venus will then station direct right around the 29th of January when the moon comes into conjunction with Venus. And then shortly after, what Mike was saying is Mars in Capricorn, which is exalted, by the way, is going to meet up with Venus, and it's going to conjunct right around mid-February. So the astrology from mid-February into March of 2022 is some of my favorite astrology when you start seeing all the planets in Capricorn sextiling Neptune, sextiling Jupiter. There's this build where Mars and Venus, the star-crossed lovers, come together. They're conjunct.
That's what I can't wait for, because it's going to go over Pluto.
It's going to be such a good Valentine's Day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's going to be in Pluto, too. And they're actually going to conjunct Pluto exactly. And then it's going to conjunct Saturn, too, which the last time Mars was on Saturn was 0 degrees. So this is like the parable of the masters. The master where the
It all
talents.
sextiles Jupiter, too.
Oh, my God. Oh, in Pisces, right?
Well, here's the big thing. This is the most interesting day to me.
Before you say that, because everything you were saying as far as like you loving the astrology of it, when you really understand astrology, like there's never a dull moment. Every day is like full of fascination. But I feel like 2022, every single day is just going to be eventful. Like there's not going to be one single transit that's not epic.
Something about the transits in early March when Mars, Venus, and Pluto all conjunct. The dispositor is Saturn. Saturn's conjunct the moon.
That's it right there.
The sun conjunct Jupiter. Some huge epiphany, some huge expansion, the sextiles between the two, the huge wealth, the love, the
Right.
collectiveness, but also money pertaining to the government.
Right.
In a trine to the North Node is they have a solution.
And I want you to think of like, remember, like what if you think about society, the game changers, when we had smartphones, when we had Facebook and MySpace, You know, these things that came through and just changed the whole face of how we do everything. That's what I really feel about end of 2021, 2022.
I'm instinctually, I'm waiting until the beginning of what's going to be March. Like, I'm literally waiting to incorporate businesses on the 3rd.
Oh, yes.
Look at the
that's
3rd.
real,
Look
that's
at
real.
the Venus, Mars,
Yeah.
Pluto conjunction. That's wealth.
Venus,
the
Saturn.
sextile to the Sun, Neptune, Jupiter,
and
Sun.
Mercury, Saturn. Jesus Christ.
That
crazy.
is the day that I am waiting. That's my favorite election chart thus far that I've seen.
I see what you mean. Oh, damn,
Yeah.
that's a new moon of ascension. That's crazy.
Yeah, the fact that it's all conjunct Jupiter. So there's this
Wow.
huge, profound shift revolving around consciousness, awareness, money,
Yeah.
resources globally early March. But it's going to be a dark winter, December through February.
Especially if, you know, when you listen to virologists and scientists say that, like, these are more susceptible periods to get, you know, sickness. You want to listen to that because that, you know, I think we're going to see a lot of stuff rise up and everything as far as cases and deaths that aren't really embellished by the media but are actually genuine. But I feel like anything that's the next big thing, you're not going to know at first. It's going to look like, oh, this is just some new thing, like whatever. And then it's going to blow up.
There's something very big
happening.
happening
I
the
think
first 3 or 4 days of March.
Like, end of 2021, it may come through and we might be like, whatever. But then 2022, it fucking blows up. And it's just like, oh shit, this is it.
Especially the late degrees of Capricorn. Look at what happened in 2020 when Saturn went in and out of those degrees and we had
Right.
lockdowns. But with Mars, Pluto, and Venus all conjunct, there is some huge evolution that's
Right.
happening.
And the most important thing I can say is, in the same notion of something big that can blow up that seems small, you watching us right now, you could be the inventor of that. You can just create something that you think, it is what it is, or you have goals for, and it may blow up bigger than you ever expect. So I want to insert you into this dialogue. You're not just watching us speak about world events. You're a part of it too.
That's correct.
And you know that you never know. So just keep that in mind. Beautiful.
Hopefully this is helpful. I'm sure both of us will do more about this once we get into the transits of that time in December. So check the Peace Stealers Instagram and his social media, his particular YouTube. Check out mine, Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. I plan on creating content for this and talking to you guys about how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. Let us know, where is Capricorn in your chart? Do you have any placements anywhere around these degrees, specifically 24 to 28 degrees of Capricorn? I'd be interested in how it's manifesting for you. Let us know. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that bell button. Let us know what you're interested in us creating content for. We are always open to new stuff to create videos for you guys. And thank you so much for subscribing, liking, sharing. We appreciate the support. We love you guys so much. And we will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.
Peace.